Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Zareth Prevails, a Grand Arena story. Alright folks, this is it. This is the final match in our Grand Arena exhibition. This is match 12, round 4. It's the finals of round 4. It's one of the most intense matches in Grand Arena I've ever played. I've played a lot of matches, and that's saying something. And honestly guys, I'm so excited to bring this to you. So first, before I say anything more about the match, please go check out the video description here and come join us on my Discord server. We've just started it and people are starting to join. We're starting to collaborate. It's great. Please don't miss out. So this episode had a lot at stake. Not only was it the finals, so an extra Zeta mat was at stake, but if I could win, I had to win this match, I would be able to make it into the Kyber League, which, you know, that's kind of the main goal of the whole Grand Arena in the first place. You want to get that prestige thing, and so that was my goal from the very start, and that's really what I wanted to do in this match. I suspected that my opponent was going to have a high degree of skill, however, just because of their level of GP and the amount of points that they'd already earned in the Grand Arena Championships. They had the same number of geared squads, they had the same number of zetas as I did. They had more high-end mods. I would say this is about as close to an even matchup in terms of just paper advantage that you could really find in Grand Arena. I thought it was a really great matchup in terms of rosters. So my opponent started right off the bat. They hit my Geonosian squad for 60 banners, and I knew that it was going to be a pretty difficult match from then on. Beyond that, my opponent almost immediately after they started the round hit the Kyber League, so I knew that they'd already done quite a bit in terms of wins and destroying other opponents. So I was excited, though. I was going to have a good challenge, and right away after they cleared my first zone, I actually messaged my opponent and just said, hey, congrats on having such an efficient full clear. You know, you got amazing banners already. And my opponent responded right away and said, hey, thanks. You know, they were a really nice person. I'm not going to transcribe all the different chat things we said, but they were extremely amicable the entire match. So in my first match, I decided to continue on with the project that I have been undergoing, which is putting Finn in with Jedi Rey, and you know, we're looking for more utility in terms of the team being able to control. So you're able to not only get a stun off, hopefully, with Finn's special, he also has his other special that no one really knows about, except for if you've been watching this channel lately. I've been talking about it, but he is pretty good at healing the squad as well. He gives protection and health, I think 20% of each whenever he uses that. So it's a pretty good ability for the squad, since that's one of its major weaknesses. And I'm facing Jango, which is a really solid squad on defense, despite my constant disparagement of the team. And I don't mean disparagement in terms of like it's a bad team. I tend to prefer it to be on offense. So anyways, my experience with Zam was pretty limited, and you can see that my pretty much full health resistance trooper just exploded from thermal detonators. So that was shocking. I honestly was not expecting that. Pretty cool. I'm actually going to take a closer look at Zam's kit, because that was amazing, and you know, not ideal for me, but I was very impressed. So I was not going to get full banners here, and my opponent was going to start with a pretty good advantage, actually. So I decided to make the best of what I could. I mean, R2 was already pretty short on health. Maybe Finn was going to be able to regenerate his health before it was time, but that just wasn't to be. So 55 banners, that's my worst with this squad against Jango. I've done it 3 times so far. And the first time was 60, the next time was 57, now it's 55. And the whole reason I changed the squad was because it was at 53, so I don't know. I'm not calling it a failed experiment yet. I am going to explore other options potentially moving into the next Grand Arena Championships. I want to try L3 as a member of the squad, but that's getting ahead of ourselves. So the other squad in the zone was the pretty obvious Nightsisters squad that you just kind of come to expect in every match. I know that some people, some of the internet greats right now, or Grand Arena greats I should say, have been keeping the squad to be able to like kill Grievous squads, to like use Nightsisters. It's seriously legitimately insane, and I'm very impressed by it, but I'm not doing that yet. I'm not as proficient as them, so and the person I'm referencing is End All Be All, if you're not aware. So go check out his station or his channel. He's great. But still watch me, please. So anyways, where I needed to take this team out, and Padme's been my established Nightsisters counter. My opponent had a pretty strong Nightsisters team. It wasn't the strongest I'd seen. It wasn't the weakest. Pretty middle of the road, and I just hoped that I could get most of my banners against them. I'm actually going to be looking into getting Padme ready for taking on Darth Revan at some point, and so I need to start exploring other options to be able to counter Nightsisters. There are a few good options out there. So stay tuned for that in the next Grand Arena Championships. I don't know if I'll be up and running yet to be able to take out Revan yet, but we'll see. And until then, this is a really strong match. Padme and company, that they're not going to get full banners against most Nightsisters squads. It does happen, but at the same time, it's still just a very solid, reliable counter. People who have been looking at my Google Sheets counter list and trying it have all just, at least that I know of, they've all just been like, wow, this is amazing. That's so good. Keep up the good work. So, it wasn't even my idea, frankly, but yeah, it is a very effective counter. So one of the things I've never seen in Grand Arena, well, at least for a really long time, is Traya on defense, just because she counters so many different things. But my opponent had Traya on defense, and they had a really high win rate, so I was pretty sure that they knew what they were doing. In the meantime, after I had cleared that zone pretty inefficiently with -9 banners, my opponent had then hit my Nightsisters for the full 60 and hit Grievous for, I think, 50 points. So a little less. And then after that, they didn't drop a single banner the entire way. So when I came back from work, I had only cleared those first 2 during my lunch, and then when I came back out of work, my opponent had full cleared me, and I needed to have an absolutely perfect record. I had to get 60 banners every single time for the next 6 matches, and that is really hard to do, especially because you're seeing like Traya, you see Geonosians, there's a couple squads that are actually really good at just like kind of nickeling and diming your health and protection away, and I needed to have a really strong showing in my front row. I couldn't use any of my meta teams because I didn't know what my opponent had in the back row, but I did know that I really needed to get full points. So I went a little non-traditional. I decided that my opponent's Old Republic team was perhaps not the strongest possible, and I decided to try Troopers. I had success against this squad using Troopers before. My change was I added Thrawn into that 5th slot, and that's actually a pretty big change in terms of the squad composition. He doesn't have any direct synergy with Troopers specifically, but everything that affects Empire affects him. He's one more guy who can help with protection regeneration at the end, but I think the thing I like the very most about Thrawn is his fracture. I mean, that's what everyone loves about him, is he has fracture, and it stays up so long with Empire because you're hitting with so many specials. And this is really just kind of the ideal circumstance because Zelbar keeps gaining defensive stats every time I hit him. And so I'm just able to hit, get a ton of buffs up on all my guys, so I'm regenerating my protection, and at the end I was able to get my full banners. So I was pretty proud of that shift. I've never really tried Thrawn with troopers really, except for like in raids and stuff. Typically he's reserved for use with Traya or taking out some kind of meta team that I need to get rid of a taunter, but that ended up working out really well actually. Now, I know that some of my watchers might be questioning, like, why didn't I use Phoenix? That was the whole reason I put zetas on them, and all that gear, and all that time and effort, and all those mods. And frankly, my confidence in them has just been kind of shaken here. So, I'm going to run them a few more times, like in territory wars and stuff, and until then, I've decided to shelf them before putting them in against high-profile, really strong opponents. So, this is another matchup here that I'm really intrigued by. I'm really intrigued by the team that I'm facing. So every single tune here can counter because Dooku's lead gives him and Droideka counter. Baze and Chirrut have it naturally, and so does Wampa. So I took Bounty Hunters, but I decided to make another change that I literally have not done at all since the start of Grand Arena Championships, and that is take Embo out. I already have a Zeta on him. I have all kinds of gear and everything, but I decided to go with Cad Bane because I really wanted another stun on the team. You really need to be able to control Wampa, and I mean, this is a team that can counter so much, and Dooku can shock, so that prevents healing. Droideka can do an enormous amount of damage if he saves up all of his stuff, so really, the goal here was just to kill everyone except for Baze. You want to do as little damage to Baze as possible. You want to control Wampa by stunning him the entire time if possible. Get rid of Chirrut because he's the guy who can cleanse the whole squad. And Droideka is doing so much damage, you want to stun him if you can, despite the fact that Dooku gives him a ton of tenacity as well. So, really, it's just like this crazy juggling act. I really needed 60 banners here. I wasn't sure if Bounty Hunters had it in them. I mean, they're a great candidate for it, but you just never know. I mean, I could have used First Order as well, but I think First Order is a little more versatile in terms of teams that they can counter, at least other teams than this. I'm not really sure exactly what First Order would have done against this, but I was so happy to have gotten 60 banners. Baze is actually kind of a liability, I've come to realize, because I was nowhere near full health and protection until until I had an entire, like, 2 full rounds of everyone just target shooting Baze. And once he finally dropped, I'd regenerated all my health and protection. So I got the full 60 banners. I was still in it. I still needed to average 60 banners in every subsequent match. One of my opponent's back teams was Shaak Ti, and I decided I don't know, I thought for a long time about this match and what I could do. And frankly, I didn't feel like I had any really great options. My Darth Revan team would need to get full banners against my opponent's Traya team. That was just a no-brainer. I had to do that, and I knew that Sith Trooper wouldn't really contribute to that, so I took him out to get an understrength win if I could. I knew I would win this, but could I get full banners, or rather even like 61 banners? That was the real question. I led off with Lightning, on the theory that I would be able to reduce some of their turn meter, as well as just really gain a lot of turn meter in terms of just speeding up my own characters through all of my various debuffs. So really, it was incredible to see this team work. After doing Lightning, I was able to, get the pre-taunt off of Sith Trooper and Traya didn't take a single turn. The whole team did not. So I got 61 points, which is perfect. I needed that. I really, really needed that. So really the thing I was targeting the most here was I knew that I needed to take out Geonosians with Traya, almost certainly. And it's just such a wild card. It's like if Scion dies, I'll still probably win, but if he dies, I probably lose the whole match. So I needed to instead kind of increase my buffer to be able to face that Geonosian team with a relative degree of certainty, which means that I had to use First Order to counter my opponent's Qi'ra Nest team, and I needed 60 banners here. I decided not to try Understrength because I've never done that, and all of the pieces of the First Order team are so important that maybe if I had more experience trying with just 4, I'd be better at it. I mean, certainly that, but honestly, I don't think that would have been a good idea. So I went full strength here, hoping I could just get a maximum score. And you know, this Qi'ra team wasn't the absolute best. There was a couple undergeared characters, but the most important piece really was Nest had high tenacity and really low speed, and a lot of my characters could reduce turn meter, and so I needed to be careful not to give her like tenacity down and keep hitting her for things that reduced her turn meter. I also really needed to be careful about First Order officers protection because it's really hard to regenerate. He only gets it back if he gets buffed, and he only gets like a 5% bump every time. So a lot of things to consider. I needed there was 2 taunting tanks, which were both really frustrating to deal with, and beyond them, Vander Chewbacca of course needs to die first, because otherwise he'll just get prepared and resurrect guys, and then I'll just be in this endless loop and it won't go well for me. So I was able to get rid of Vander pretty quick, and Qi'ra I usually kind of leave for later, but I decided that because of her AoE I wanted to get her gone sooner if possible, and she had such low health and protection that it really didn't take much to take her out. So in the end I was able to take out all of the guys, and I had like 2 minutes to go, or 3 minutes to go, sorry. And you know, and this is where it gets scary, because Nest just counters and does what she wants basically, and I needed to be able to take her out, but I also needed to restore First Order officer's protection. And see, First Order officer had no choice but to shoot her. She wasn't stunned yet, and so his protection was down again. And so I needed to find a way to, you know, regrow all of their protection. Right now I'd only get 57 banners, and 57 is normally like, I mean, it's okay. You don't want, I wouldn't be happy with that in any circumstance, to be honest, but you know, 57, it's like, in some circumstances it's acceptable, but in this case it just certainly isn't. It's not okay, because I needed max banners. That was the mantra the entire time. How can I get max or even more than max banners? And really, so what I was trying to do here, I was watching the clock the entire time, but I needed to make sure that I could just keep Enfys Nest perma-stunned, and that meant sometimes hitting her for reducing turn meter. And once I was able to get the kind of balance right and being able to stun Enfys Nest and, you know, keep just chunking away at her health, then I would be able to slowly buff and rebuff and hopefully slowly get First Order officer back to full protection. So that's kind of what I'm doing. I know that I kind of scared myself here. You know, at this point, it's like really nerve-wracking. Will, if I mess up, if I reduce her turn meter one time, oh, and I just did with First Order officer, like, was that it? Was I just finished? Was, you know, what could I do to make things better? How can I fix this? And so, you know, okay, so she just got she took a turn, and I was able to take some of her protection off, but I haven't even started hitting her health yet, and she can't regrow her health when she hits, but that doesn't help anyways, because she's just hanging out and stunned. And it's now down to like 30 and 30 minutes, and we're just about out of time. But luckily, First Order Executioner came in clutch. First Order Officer hooked him up with the advantage, and bam, there's full 60. And all I have left are bugs and Shaak Ti troopers, which actually had some pretty fast mods on them. I needed to make sure that I could take them out as well with full points, or maybe even get higher points. I wasn't sure exactly what to expect. And then it occurred to me that I could take Bastila as lead against this squad. And I'm sure that the Jedi Revan would have been a better choice in terms of like ensuring that I won the match. But if I lost the match, if I lost any banners here, I was going to lose anyways. And so I decided to just go the extreme protection route, and I just gambled that I'd be able to take out all the clones and Shaak Ti before they could chew through my plus, 150% extra protection. So, that was kind of a gamble, but I decided that, really that's what I needed to do. And so I took out Shaak Ti first. She's only gear 8. So she was relatively easy to take out, but she's really the one who makes that team spin. And the more damage you do to clones, it just like revs up her turn meter. Like it's crazy. She gets plus 20% turn meter. I read her whole kit like 5 times before I went into this matchup. Like every time you do damage to a clone or to her, she gets plus 20% turn meter. So you do an AoE against the squad, and she gets full turn meter. Even if she's just gone, she goes again right away. And the buffs she gives her guys and all the different stuff it's just kind of it's hard to manage. So I took her out first, and then the rest, I mean, they weren't high geared. None of them had super high gear. I went into my opponent's profile actually and just looked at what they had taken, or what they had put on the clones, and they hadn't put a ton of like gear 12 plus on them or anything either. So I escaped this one with 61 banners. So far I'd actually picked up an extra 2 banners of wiggle room against my opponent, since I had learned that I had to average 60 banners every time. So if I could beat bugs using Traya and only lose protection on 4 guys, then I could do it. I could win. And if my opponent, if we tied, in the case of a tie, I would actually have the advantage there. And I would always prefer to win via actual points, but if I could win by a tie, I mean, that would get me into Kyber League. I'm really not going to be picky. So I decided to just go for it. I took a 4th member just to take the strain off of Scion. And I tried something new that I haven't done before. Maybe it's like standard or something. I don't know. I haven't really watched a ton of videos of this, to be honest. I'm kind of just figuring it out on my own. I put Isolate on the Brood Alpha so that he's not helping with all of the assists. And that way I would also have time to be able to, if I was able to wipe out the rest of the squad, he would still be relatively healthy. He wouldn't be taunting or anything, so I could hit the other Geos, and I'd be able to have a couple turns to be able to regrow health and maybe even get protection up or whatever from Traya, and maybe get squeak out a couple extra banners here or there. So of course this is super nerve-wracking. You watch Scion, he's like at half health, all of his protection's gone. What do? Exactly. I mean, you just watch. Really, that's what you can do, is watch. And at least I'm watching from inside. If my opponent was watching this match, all they could see was some text saying that Zareth was doing his thing. So, as much as he probably enjoyed the fact that I was doing my thing, it's probably way more nerve-wracking on his side. So, where I was able to come out to the breaking point, Traya and her squad just. It's so fun to watch the Geos just kind of melt away into nothingness. On their own accord. It's really one of the most fun counters in the game, if I'm being honest. And, at this point, I was pretty sure that I wasn't going to be missing any points that I really needed, but Spy was still around. He can hit for some crazy numbers. I wasn't sure that he wasn't going to like hit Scion back into losing some of his health, so I was trying to be cautious. There wasn't much I could do, to be honest, just because Spy is stealth and all that. But in the end, I got 58 banners, which was really just barely enough to be able to squeak out a win against my opponent. I got 1911 to their 1910. I won by 1 point, which is a crazy result, especially after I dropped like 9 banners in my first 2 attacks, and after that I didn't miss a single banner. So my opponent, of course, hit all of my without failing a single attack. I think this is by far the most efficient attack anyone has ever done on my units. My opponent said that they used Jedi Knight Revan to take out my Nightsisters. They left the room before I could ask about what other squads they used to take me out. I would be in particular be interested to know what they took out, the Rex team and the Commander Luke team, just because those traditionally have been really good banner burners for me. So one thing to note, though, my opponent didn't have Grievous on defense, just because there was a feat to have Grievous, to use Grievous in, and win a battle with them. So I think they were really intent on making the Kyber League no matter what, which totally makes sense. I would do the same if I could have just gotten it off of feats in the first place, but I couldn't, so I just chose to keep my defenses the same. And Ewoks are, I don't know what I'm going to do with Ewoks, but at the end of the match, I was at 34,900 points. I needed 600 more, which, because I was assured with the win, I would be able to just barely get into Kyber League. And after that round, man, it was so good. My opponent was such a good sport, really. Thank you so much. If you're watching this, I told him about my page here, or my channel, so if you come and check this out, thank you so much. You were so gracious with it, and congratulations on getting into Kyber League. You really kicked some butt, so good job, sir. I'm assuming you're a sir. Anyways, I ended up with the win. Once I got my points, I got the Kyber League. It was so cool. This screenshot is kind of a mess, but really, I mean, I was so excited. This is the culmination of 12 full matches. I lost a couple and didn't know if I could get in, but once I was in Kyber, I was like, oh, this is cool. I'm like top 200. I'm gonna actually get a better prize than like all of the scrubs that are sub 200. And so that was exciting. Here are my prizes for Kyber League for getting in. They're pretty decent, for Division 1 Kyber League. That's pretty good. Well, it's okay. Really, if you look closer at it, it's like all stuff you already have. But in the end, when I got my prizes, it was definitely not in the top 200. I'd apparently fallen a couple places just because people were completing feats. We had an extra day in this round to do feats. So, and looking here, see, I got 201 plus in that category. And meanwhile, my alt is like 5 steps higher. He got really great rewards because he is overpowered for that level apparently. But I do videos for my alt too, by the way. But anyways, guys, this has been so exciting taking this trip to Kyber with you. Please just stay tuned. Lots of cool plans, awesome teams I'm planning. It's been a true pleasure. So until then, guys, thank you so much for watching. And remember that in all things, Zareth prevails.